All right, friends. We always leave these two for the very end. We have to do it. It's arguably the two biggest. Is there anything bigger than Fighter of the Year? Male and female Fighter of the Year. Is there anything more prestigious than the 2024 Helwani Knows Male and Female Fighter of the Year? I don't know. You tell me, guys. Anyone? Frank?
No, this is what the discussion's all about. This is the debate. Who's going to win it?
This is big. This is massive. I can't wait to hear what you guys have to say. I think there will be, my prediction is that I think there will be a consensus. It will be unanimous female, but not male. That's my prediction. And of course, this has been a big debate. I mean, we don't have to beat around the bushes as far as male is concerned. It seems like everyone agrees it was down to two people. It was down to Illa Topuria and Alex Pereira. Female was a little bit tougher. Really due to a lack of activity from the UFC champions. If I'm being honest, it usually is a UFC champion thing. Due to the lack of activity, it felt like, okay, this was an opportunity to go off the grid, so to speak. And so I'll start first with female fighter of the year. And my pick is Dakota Ditcheva. You can make a case for her being a breakout fighter, a most improved fighter. You can make a lot of cases for her, but the year that she had going from the PFL Europe scene, then coming over to the big stage, if you will, running through the tournament and then eventually winning it all when everyone thought, oh, she would get exposed, she'd get fined out, she's not ready, she's just, a striker, she's just a pretty face, whatever they were saying, she annihilated all of that. It was impressive showing after impressive showing, and then topping it off with just completely annihilating Taila Santos in late November. That's 4 wins in a very short amount of time after an incredible 2023 campaign. Dakota Ditcheva, my female fighter of the year. Congratulations to her. Pete?
+1 for Dakota Ditcheva. Absolutely brilliant year. I consider her the golden girl of the sport. You have a lofty prediction, of course, that you made for 2025 based on Dakota's success. And look, it's kind of what I spoke to earlier. PFL have a conveyor belt of talent here. You guys cannot see that because they don't have a way to broadcast these PFL Europe fights. But like, Dakota comes from this European setup. Now she's obviously in the global setup. She's top of the world. But you have Lewis McGrillen behind her as well, who I referenced earlier in this fight with Dean Garnett. It's a success story for PFL as well as one for Dakota. And I just don't think you can top that. 4 fights, 4 finishes. She's absolutely spectacular to watch. And I think she has brought some massive brand awareness to the PFL, particularly in Europe and particularly in the UK and Ireland. Well
said. Not much more to add. GC?
Yeah, 3 for 3 so far. Going with Dakota Ditcheva as well. 4-0. 4 wins via finish. Wins $1 million check. Becomes a champion and is now the fastest rising woman in the sport. Can't wait to see what she's got for 2025.
By the way, shout out to On Air Jordan. He's done the reveal 3 times now. Always different pictures. Could have reused them.
That's production right there.
That's production. That's why he's the man. That's why he is the man. All right, do we go 4 for 4? Oh, come on. This is some kind of bullshit right here. This is some kind of bullshit right here. What is
I thought about it. I thought about Dakota.
I thought about this too.
She was my number 2, but
if it's Ronda Rousey, we riot.
Well done. Well played. No, it's a serious answer, and I'll be honest. I think it's completely justified. I recognize what Dakota did this year. Incredible accomplishment. Again, this to me comes down to how you kind of think about these awards, and is it the volume or is it the quality? Is it the context and the circumstances surrounding it? To me, the complete package for the year was one Kayla Harrison.
Yeah.
The 2 wins were bigger wins. Let's just, acknowledge that right off bat, right? Like beating Holly Holm and beating Ketlin Vieira is more significant than the wins that Dakota picked up. I put high stock into the Taila Santos win, but the others I don't. Let's acknowledge. I think we have to acknowledge the level of competition here. To come into the UFC, to have the expectations that were set upon her, to deliver in those moments, to make weight at 135 multiple times. To me, this year belonged to Kayla Harrison, with all due respect to Dakota, who I had number 2, and it was razor close for me, but I gave the slight edge to Kayla Harrison.
She was my number 2 as well. I want to give you shit, but I really can't because it's a classic like, okay, do the 2 mean more than the 4? And then by the weight cutting thing was gigantic as well. The UFC jitters, she comes in there. She was tested in that second fight in Utah, and then she came back and looked fantastic. So she was my runner-up.
The hand.
The hand, yeah, she had surgery. Good call, Frank. And it's interesting. The 2 probably, I didn't see anyone pick someone other than Dakota or Kayla. Both of them not UFC champions, and that's very rare. It's usually a bantamweight champion, a flyweight champion, a strawweight champion in the UFC. That's usually how it's been over the last few years. Obviously, back in the day, there was Strikeforce and all that. So I think that's very interesting as well. Hey, can we give a shout out to Jasmine?
Jazz Divizius.
She had a great year. She had a great year. Obviously, not female fighter of the year levels as well. She's not fighting the higher echelon, but she had a great 2024. Anyone else that you guys wanted to give a shout out to?
I felt like there was a clear separation between these 2 and the rest, right? Dakota and Kayla and the rest. But I did have Natalia Silva had some massive wins.
Yeah.
Verna Jandiroba had some massive wins, and Jillian Robertson had some massive wins. There was a lot of really, really solid performances. The unfortunate thing is the volume of fights is just not there. Somebody like Dakota outside the UFC actually benefits by being in this tournament. You are going to get those fights guaranteed, whereas in the UFC, the women's fights are just not as frequent. And so it's hard. But Jillian Robertson was able to get 3 wins, undefeated, pretty good year for her.
Jasmine too.
Yeah. So there was some real competition for me in any other year, but to me these 2 were head and shoulders above. Like they separated from the pack.
Zhang Wei Li went 1-0. Valentina Shevchenko went 1-0. Juliana Pena went 1-0. So those are the UFC champions. Chris Cyborg, by the way, went 1-0. So all they had great years, but not as much activity as maybe some of the champions in the past. We hopefully will get Zhang Wei Li back in action in early February in what is one of the best fights of the first quarter of 2025. Zhang Wei Li against Tatiana Suarez. Hopefully we get that one in early February in Australia. By the way, the people, they agreed with you, Rick. Kayla Harrison. How about that?
Wow.
Surprised?
I'm very surprised.
It was. Oh, really? I feel like it was a coin flip between those 2.
Yeah, it was a coin flip between those 2, and both. And by the way, shout out to PFL. One's a PFL product, the other one's a current PFL champion. So it's not. I know people love to give them shit, but it's not all bad. And when it comes to women's MMA, they're doing something right, clearly. All right, last one. Is there any type of music? Is there any type of... This is it. We could probably do a 1-hour show on just this. And there was a part of me, actually, that was so looking forward to the discussion. I thought about starting with this one because it's. I keep looking at everyone else's awards, and I see it, and I read it, and it's come down to 2 people, like I said, right? It's come down to Alex Pereira and Illa Topuria. In case you forgot, Alex Pereira went 3-0. In 2024. And of course, we're talking about male fighter of the year. Went 3-0. He won at UFC 300. He won at UFC 303. He won at UFC 307. And then it's Illa Topuria. Illa Topuria beating arguably the best featherweight champion of all time, Alex Volkanovski, and then beating arguably the best featherweight champion of all time in Max Holloway. There's 3 right now in the best featherweight of all time category. It's Alex Volkanovski, it's Max Holloway, it's Jose Aldo. Not in that order, but you get the point. Someday Ilya is going to be in that mix as well. And so he beat both of them, 2 out of the 3 in 2024 in the span of 8 months and stopped both of them. And oh, by the way, was the first man to stop Max Holloway and did it in emphatic fashion. Incredible year. And so do you value the 2 wins over the legends? Do you value the 3 wins over, maybe lesser competition? One, by the way, is a rematch. The other against a not highly ranked guy, Khalil Roundtree. The other against someone who was out with an Achilles tear for, almost a year. Shorter amount of time, 3 versus 2. It's a fascinating debate. And I can't wait to see which direction we go in. Should I go first on this one or should I go last? I'm kind of like internally debating it. I'll go first. Why not?
Go first.
I'll go first on this one. My 2024, thank you for that, Frank. My 2024 Male Fighter of the Year award goes to, and historically, this isn't a very tough one. We've had a couple times Masvidal, Adesanya year back in the day, but historically it's not very tough. I wanted that to keep going. Was the drop done? Was it just a 10-second drop? And you could replay it. In any event, it was a tough one, man. I was struggling. I was struggling over this one because I don't want to take anything away. And I actually thought of going with a co-winner. I thought about doing, yes, I thought about that, but I felt like it was a cop-out. You can't sit on the fence. I already did it with the poster. And so in the end, I went with Poatan. I had to stick with him because of the fact that he saved the UFC, 3 times in the span of 6 months, the 3 stoppages, the 3 emphatic wins, stepping up 300, stepping up 303, stepping up 306, 307, excuse me. And I don't know what the right answer is. Ultimately, I'm going to hear someone here. I bet they're going to say Topuria, and you make a strong case. But to me, it came down to 3 over 2, short notice, emphatic wins, Alex Pereira, not only the MVP of the UFC, in my opinion, in 2024, but also the 2024 Helwani Knows Male Fighter of the Year. Congratulations, parabéns, Poatan. Rick, you go next.
I'm with you, man. I had Alex Pereira. I just think when you look at the moments that were the biggest of the year, and you look at the biggest events of the year, and you look at when the UFC needed somebody to save their cards, he was the name on everybody's lips. He was the one who stepped up. And in those moments, when the stakes were the highest, when he was the one coming in to save the day, he finished the job every single time and did save the day. It was always a knockout. It was always impressive. He created the biggest moments of the year. To me, it was difficult, but it wasn't like I didn't struggle. I didn't struggle. I thought Ilya had a great year, but I thought Alex had the better year. And that is hard to say when you look at the resume of what Ilya put together. But for me, it was Alex.
GC?
Yeah, I mean, if you go back to the week of 308, I mean, this has been a topic of discussion since then. And I said if Illa Topuria knocks out Max Holloway, if he becomes the first one to do that, you're going to have to put him in the conversation with Alex Pereira in a category that felt like it was already written in stone that Alex Pereira was going to be the fighter of the year. And Illa Topuria did exactly what he said he was going to do, and he went in there and knocked out Max Holloway, the first one to do it, and therefore my male fighter of the year is El Matador, Illa Topuria, the 2 wins that he put together this year, becoming champion by knocking out Alexander Volkanovski, the first person to ever defeat him at featherweight, and then to go in and take out Max Holloway by knockout. Growing into one of the biggest stars in the sport. I mean, it's one of the greatest 2 wins back-to-back we've ever seen in the sport's history. For that reason, my male fighter of the year, Illa Topuria.
It's crazy because any other year, if there's no Pereira doing what he did, this is a no-brainer. And any other year, if there's no Topuria doing what he did, like, it's a no-brainer
Exactly.
as well.
We're blessed to be in this situation. There is no wrong answer here.
Yeah, tough one. And I feel horrible, honestly, because Topuria deserves all the love in the world. But there's got to be one winner when it comes to Fighter of the Year. And it sounds like 2 of us have gone with Pereira, 1 with Topuria. Pizzi, whose side are you on?
To speak to how close these 2 guys were, I've changed my mind. I was saying one thing all year, and I went back and I watched them all just so I get a feel of it. I couldn't go against Illa Topuria. But that's my fighter of the year. It's Illa Topuria for all the reasons GC just said, and for the fact that he is opening up a new market. They would not be able to go to Spain without this guy. The relationship between La Liga and the UFC, it makes it just an open goal for them to go there. Where else have we talked about, would we do a stadium here with this guy? Not many places. That is the conversation they're having about Illa Topuria. Whether they do it or not, I don't think it will happen personally, the Bernabeu. I would love if it would happen. But for me, I think we're about to step in to Spain for the first time with the UFC, and that is going to be so exciting. All of the things I said about France earlier, I think we're knocking on the door of that in Spain, and that's thanks to Illa Topuria. I understand Pereira. I can understand how much he meant to the promotion this year. He stood up when the great superstar McGregor let them down, essentially. He's been magic all year. He is the face of the promotion as far as I can see it, but fighter of the year is about fighting, and to take out 2 of the greatest 45ers of all time, you become a champion. And again, as I say, have all this ahead of you now, notions of stadiums, etc. That's why I'm going with Illa Topuria, Fighter of the Year 2024.
Wow, how about that? 2 for Pereira, 2 for Topuria. Perhaps we turn to the people to break this tie, and they went with. Shamba! Yeah, Alex Pereira. Of course, who could forget that great scene in Newark on May 31st at the NJ Pack? How about that? Remember that when he came up on stage and we did it together? By the way, I do want to let you know that we have never before released those interviews from our live show on May 31st. And starting this Saturday, we'll be releasing them one a week, every interview. Armin Tarukian, Alex Pereira, Daniel Cormier, Kayla Harrison, Ally Quinta, Aljamain Sterling, members only, never before seen, other than those 400 or so in attendance. And so if you're a member, you'll get them every Saturday for the next 5 or so weeks. That's an aside. I just thought of it because of this. Alex Pereira, Illa Topuria. What a race. What a freaking race. Probably the closest. Remember Izzy and Jorge Masvidal a few years back? That was a really tough one. Yeah, this was a really, 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 really tough one. And ultimately, maybe that one wasn't as tough because Izzy won the belt, Masvidal didn't. Both these guys, champions, both of them legends. Incredible. Incredible years. Both primed for big 2025 campaigns. Of course, Alex Pereira, a lot older than Topuria, and maybe in the running for that John Jones fight. If Jones doesn't go in the direction of Tom Aspinall, we shall see. Other fighters, male fighters, who had strong years, DDP, Dricus du Plessis, winning the belt. By the way, it is kind of crazy that DDP doesn't get mentioned, right? He beat Sean Strickland, who was the champion, and then Israel Adesanya. He doesn't get talked about in this discussion.
I've got him third.
Yeah, 2 wins, but it was really a 2-horse race, right? Because maybe those guys, I mean, he beat Adesanya in a great fight, but doesn't...
Beat the last 2 middleweight champs.
Yeah.
I've got him third. I think he deserves that.
Alex Pantoja went 2-0, Steve Erceg, and Kaya Sakura. Any other year, by the way, Merab Dvalishvili gets mentioned, right? He went 2-0 as well. Cejudo, O'Malley, but it feels like it just was about those 2, Alex Pereira and Illa Topuria. I did mention Joaquin Buckley, who went 4-0. Carlos, how is it, GC?
Praches?
Yeah, 4-0 as well. Charles Johnson, 4-0. Renato Moicano, 3-0. Diego Lopez, 3-0. Nasruddin Imavov, 3-0. Jean Silva, 3-0. Umar Nurmagomedov, 2-0. Yusuf Zalal, 3-0. Shara Magomedov, 3-0. Ludovic Klein, 3-0. Oban Elliott, Andre Lima, Paul Hughes, and Sean Woodson all went 3-0 as well. So, yeah, shout out to them. We had some other guys, obviously, in the PFL tournament who went 4-0. But in the end, it was down to those 2. And I'm not really sure. Do we have a poll up here? I wonder what the people are saying as... Yeah, they're watching it live. 66% in favor of Alex Pereira, 32% in favor of Illa Topuria. How about that, gentlemen?